Reframing a problem or looking at it in a different way can help us find better solutions. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of ReFrame. I am your host, Ana Trujillo Limon, and today I'm super excited to be joined by my friend Denise Milano Sprung. Denise, welcome to the show, and thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, so it's February. It's a beautiful snowy day in Denver. I know you're out there in New York. How's the weather out there in New York? Is it snowy? Is it cold?
It actually is. We got a little bit of snow last night. I think there might be a little bit more coming, but probably nothing like you have. Just like a few flurries just to make it look like winter.
It's always good for hockey season, though, right? I know the Sprungs are big on hockey. Y'all are always
very much so.
League. Yeah, having some fun watching your kids play. Love it. Love to see all of that on social media. Which brings me to the point of the day and what we're talking about this month, which is marketing. And so if you all don't know Denise is the director of marketing for Mitlin Financial, and she does a lot of really cool things behind the scenes. So if you see Larry Sprung on live streams and you see him on social media and you see all of these great things Mitlin's doing, likely Denise is the one making it happen behind the scenes. So I wanted to give you your flowers, Denise, and give you a chance to share some of your really cool things that you do there at Mitlin with our listeners and viewers here at ReFrame. So let's talk a little bit about your journey into marketing at Mitlin Financial. Marketing is not your background. So let's talk a little bit about how you got into it.
So one of the things that I've learned from the guests that we've actually had on the Mitlin Money Mindset, where we speak mostly to entrepreneurs, is that my journey is not dissimilar from most entrepreneurs. It's a little bit windy. So I actually have a bachelor's degree in biological sciences from the University of Buffalo. Didn't end up working in a lab because it's really quiet there and I'm not a quiet person. Luckily I did an internship that sort of showed me like, hey, this isn't how I want to spend my life. So I came out of school and actually went to work for an Annapolis grad who flew A6s in Vietnam, who was an amazing mentor. And he taught me how to be a recruiter in the pharmaceutical industry. So didn't take organic chemistry for nothing, at least I knew a little bit. When I was pregnant with our oldest son, I actually started my own search firm focusing on placing physicians in the pharmaceutical industry. And then just as Zachary was born, Larry founded Mitlin Financial, naming it after his mother and my grandpa. That's a longer story that is actually episode 1 of the Mitlin Money Mindset. Ran my search firm really successfully. Actually, it's part of what helped Larry create Mitlin very intentionally. Because he didn't have to stress about money or paying bills because my firm was pretty successful. As probably in about 2017, 2018, started to bring a little bit more marketing to Mitlin Financial. As Larry founded the podcast and joined Carson Partners, my role transitioned more full-time. And then just at the start of the pandemic, this became my full-time focus.
Awesome.
Sorry, that was a lot and probably more than I intended.
I love it because you kind of bring a scientific approach to your work that you do there in the marketing team, right? So I love it. Let's talk a little bit about some examples of how Mitlin and you are using its platform, to elevate the brand, to humanize Larry, and it really makes people connect with you all, not just Larry, but the whole team, really. Let's talk a little bit about your scientific approach to that.
Well, I will say that and Larry said this before, so I'm not a wife saying something a husband hasn't said. Larry and I battled for a little bit around that point. So Larry initially thought that people didn't care who he was, right? He's like, I'm just going to do educational videos. And if you'd like, I've left those on the Mitlin YouTube channel for anyone who thinks that they can't learn how to be on video and how to communicate. Those 9-year-old videos are rough. And I had started to say to him, Larry, you need to let people know who you are. And he's like, no one wants to see me on vacation. To which I responded, yes, they do. So in 2016, when we went to Alaska, there were very few photos. In 2019, when we were fortunate enough to go to South Africa, he said, you know what? Okay. Because at the time, there were no other wealth advisors. It was just Larry. So he was very clear with the families that we served that he would be tough to get a hold of. And then he'd be checking email at night. So many of the families, Anna, just wished him well and had said, it sounds so amazing. I can't wait to hear about you. So I convinced him that once a night, we would post the adventures from that day. And the feedback from that was transformational. We actually had one woman when we got back who called Larry up almost in tears and said, South Africa was always my dream, but I'll never be able to go there. She has COPD. And since that day, he's been much more open about sharing who he is.
Mm-hmm.
But those 2 points in our life are really a good indication of that sort of 3-year journey to opening up more. And then really after South Africa in 2019, that switch flipped.
Mm-hmm.
And it was with that flip that more of my time was like, okay, now I can tell our story. Now I can put stuff out there. I will pause and say that for anyone listening who has children, one of the things that we did, and it's probably, there's a couple things about this that fit the title ReFrame, but one of them is we used those images. We use that, putting us out there also as a way to teach our children about social media.
Mm-hmm.
So I even did it yesterday. Yesterday, our younger son came out in the morning to a flat tire on his car.
Oh, no.
He took a photo. And what I said was, hey, Jay, is it okay if dad puts this on social media?
Mm-hmm.
So in those days when they were 13, 14, 15, 16, and, trying to teach them about being responsible on social media, we used a lot of Larry's content as that, like, hey guys, is it okay if we post this? So we also reframed the conversation in our home so that we could teach social media responsibility. You don't just take someone's picture and put it up. So we use it in a couple ways in our home, and then to kind of share who he was online.
I love that's so awesome, and like that you incorporated that permission from the kids. I just saw this crazy documentary on Amazon Prime about like, the family vloggers and the kids of the family vloggers who didn't want to be on TV or want to be on YouTube or whatever. But so I love that you did that. That's very conscientious of you. And the second point is the wives are always right, right?
Well, it's funny if you if you decide to follow Larry after this, you will see that he will often make jokes now, particularly when he's in studio for a television interview, because he does not pick his clothes out in studio. Either myself or the younger son I just spoke about. Sometimes I'll FaceTime our younger son who's playing junior hockey and be like, hey, Jay, what about this shirt and, this jacket? And because Larry's just like, please dress me. So up to and including dressing for he dresses himself on a normal day, but I just dress him for TV.
Love it. Love it. You got to look good for those cameras, right? You got to do it. You got to listen to your wife and your son, your fashionable son. Love it.
It turns out we actually had a PR company do some really good work with Larry when we first joined them at the launch of his book, which was there's some patterns that don't work on TV. You really don't want to be super logo friendly because it's their platform. So there are a lot of sort of rules. I actually end up buying him some new shirts and some different suits so that they fit a little bit different. So there are some very specific tips around being on television that you really don't know unless you're there.
Yeah, for sure. And when I first started doing framework back in the day, like again, going back to those first videos from 9 years ago were rough. Those first framework episodes were rough, right? So I decided I need to hire a media coach and someone who can teach me how to be on video, teach me how to like be a little less stiff, a little less shy. So she kind of gave me a lot of Denver Promo Studios was the name of the company. She was incredible.
Oh, that's
and
awesome.
So that's really helpful for this type of work, for marketing work. If you're getting on TV, doing interviews, stuff like that, media training is really invaluable. But let's shift back and talk about some of these really cool strategies that you have. Yep. So you told me a story about you had an event recently. You had a printed menu with the Mitlin logo on it, and then you wrote a Google review. Let's talk about that story and why that was such a cool way to get eyes on Mitlin.
So for those who don't know, I should start with at Mitlin Financial, when we host client events and we invite clients to bring a friend, those events are just to come out with us and enjoy our company. There's no sales pitch, there's no promo, there's no product. And our biggest lift in the beginning was really to reassure people of that. So I'm a big swag person. Our logos are often embedded many places. And in this case, it's actually a restaurant where I've worked with the manager before. She threw bar mitzvah lunches for both of our sons. So I worked with Cindy and we were doing a wine and food pairing. She created a menu so that people would see what they were eating. And I took pictures of both the menu as well as some swag that was around the room that had the Mitlin Money Mindset as well as the Mitlin Financial logo, beautiful sushi trays, and put those pictures up on a Google review for the restaurant because the restaurant staff, absolutely amazing. I mean, I recommend people there all the time. The last time I checked, that Google review, which remember is a restaurant that's probably 15 miles from our office. So people who are going to read it are right in our demographic. And there's 9 or 10 pictures and probably 5 of them have our logo in them. So I used reviewing someone who did an amazing job for us as a way to just embed our logo in some of those pictures. So almost anytime we throw an event, if we were really grateful to the service provider, we write the review and our pictures include a logo, up to and including usually most of our men will have a Mitlin Money Mindset or a Mitlin Financial golf shirt on as well, or a pullover. So we get the logo in there too. So it's another way to sort of repurpose that event. And again, also thank a local business that has done right by you and your guests, because we all know not everyone does, right?
Right. No, that's brilliant, because it's two birds, right? You're thanking and giving recognition to people who did a great job while also bringing some recognition to your own brand. That's great. So let's talk a little bit. You mentioned that your events are not to sell, not to, anything else, but to connect with people. So let's talk a little bit about the marketing that goes, the preparation for those events, the marketing of the events, and what goes into that. Like, for example, you do some really great client events too. Like the recently something at a distillery, something at the Ball Arena here in Denver. So let's talk a little bit about what goes into that for you.
So we try to be thoughtful about it. I will say they are events that are invite only. Again, families are allowed to let us know if they're going to bring a guest. All we require is their name and email address, so we know who to expect and able to give an accurate head count. In the case of the distillery, it turns out there's a local distillery right by us that does organic distills, tequila, rum. They're still in the process of their first whiskey. I met the owner. He was just super cool, really passionate. It turned out to be our largest turnout ever at an event. Not surprised, there's booze, right? We'll say, for everyone listening, the other thing Larry and I did, which is a complete aside, but again, a lesson for our kids and those listening, we Ubered to that event. Never intended to have a ton of drinks, but if you're going to see Larry or I have one drink an event, neither one of us are driving. So Larry and I actually Ubered to the event. I will say we actually have a family we serve who actually drove us home. He was like, "You're not getting an Uber." He doesn't drink. So he's like, "I'm going to drive you home." So complete aside, we had a family drive us home, which was really nice. But in that case, what we were able to do is there was an exercise behind the bar where you're taught how to make some just really like fun drinks and a way to make them non-alcoholic. And then the owner gave the other half a distillery tour, and then we swapped. And as you said, no sales. Everyone was just welcomed by Larry, pointed out who some of the team members, because Josh, our director of first impressions, was newish. It was only his second event with us. Everyone always leaves my events with something. In this case, you actually left with a full bottle of alcohol of your choice, as well as a coaster that said, "What did you do that brought you joy?"
Yeah, I bet that brought a lot of people joy.
Oh my God, people had so much fun. They actually, I didn't know they were going to do this, but the bartender actually pulled our guests back to like make the drink. So they walk them through how to make it. So there's this really cool video of one of the local estate planning attorneys who we do a lot of business with. And Brian Tully's back there like shaking drinks. And it's like the coolest video.
That's awesome. Oh, and shout out to Jessica Brown. Jessica, thanks so much for tuning in. We're so excited to be having this conversation too. So let's dive into a little bit about your blog and how let's talk a little bit about how you kind of identify the type of content you want to have, like how you determine the editorial calendar and what to cover. Let's dive into that a little bit.
Absolutely. So the blog that Anna's referring to is called Mom's Reading. It is a book blog that a friend and I started, about 12 years ago. It taught me a number of things, one of which is the importance of trademarks. Our book blog is trademarked. We've had a number of people try to copy it, thinking if they just add an extra H, somehow it's not a trademark infringement. And the lesson that taught me, actually, as soon as the line, "What did you do that brought you joy," literally just as a podcast was released, we contacted a trademark attorney, and that's been trademarked since the Mitlin Money Mindset launched. So that was probably the first lesson that was paramount. The second is, it is actually a book blog about mostly romance books. There are some business books on there. Larry's actually done a couple guest reviews, including Sean Avery's biography. But one of the things that taught me was really the power of social media. And that really ties in with me trying to push Larry. Founded it in 2012, and I just kept pushing him. And like I said, it wasn't until about 2019 that he was like, okay, fine, we'll try this. The thing that I think is important for the advisor audience, which is what this is targeted to remember, is something that Matt Halloran talks about a lot, which is you're not looking to go viral. You're not looking for 100 million views. You can't even serve 100 million people, right? You're not NerdWallet trying to get affiliate clicks. You're trying to find the right families to serve. So it's not about getting the numbers that you would have if you were to look at how many people follow my book blog online, right? It's just about putting content out there that resonates with people. And it probably isn't a coincidence that running a blog and passion for romance and the positivity around that, and just positivity that brings into your life, and the women in that field really led us to turning most of what we talk about into joy and positivity as it relates to money. And that's really resonated with people tremendously.
For sure. Yeah, the power of positive, and one of our coaches, JJ Paller, he talks about that a lot, like the mindset, the positive mindset, and the power of that to be able to get you through challenges and bring open doors and bring new opportunities is really critical. So I love that you brought that up. But you also brought up, in that time you learned about the power of social media. So let's talk a little bit about how do you stay up to date on social media trends and all of that stuff, and adapt to make sure that Mitlin and all of its associated brands stays relevant?
That's a great question, and I'm not sure that I do.
Well, it seems like you do. It seems like you're on top of it, Denise.
Well,
I'll tell you what.
then I appreciate that. I think that I found a couple of resources online that are really great. Many of the Carson folks who I've spoken to about marketing and have been out to the Marketing Academy, I share often. I listen a lot. I think Samantha Russell is wonderful. I think Matt Halloran is wonderful. There's a bunch of great resources out there. I'm also not necessarily sure you can always chase the algorithm, because they're not really going to tell you what it is. When you and I spoke with Larry prior on Framework, I spoke about the fact that I truly believe what being authentic is about is sharing parts of you that you're comfortable sharing. And it's not about sharing everything. So your story is your story. So I don't necessarily know that you're going to chase the algorithm, because again, you're not looking to go viral. You're looking to connect with specific people. I do think one of the things that is critical that people do tend to forget is that social media is just that, social. So the ratio in terms of how much you post and how much you comment does seem to change, but there is a lot of validity to you're not posting and running. Recently, actually, Matt Halloran shared that one of the things that they're finding critical is even if you're scheduling a post, know when that schedule is set to go off. And for those 5 minutes before or after, be on that platform, because again, regardless of the change in the algorithm, what all the platforms are chasing are eyes, including yours.
Love it. And we have a comment from Zach. Zach Sprung, your son, Denise, said that's what teenage children are for, right? So if you have teenage children, utilize their knowledge.
I actually will say credit to Zach. Zachary early on had said, Dad, no one wants to see you standing in front of the Mitlin sign in your office. And one of the things that we do is I go on vacation with a list of possible blog posts, and Larry records 1-minute videos from vacation.
That's awesome.
So in the upcoming months, you will see a number of videos that were recorded on Richard Branson's private island, Necker, in the British Virgin Islands.
Oh, that's right.
So it is, and I don't think I fully answered your question about content strategy. So what we try to do is when Carson Group releases what their monthly strategy is at the end of each year, I try to align most of those. Some of them don't always fit because our target population isn't people right at retirement. Actually, Larry shares a story in the book that usually if you come to us just as you're going to retire, his answer is usually no, we're not a fit, because there's not much planning that can be done just as you're about to retire. So we work within those framework, and those monthly blog posts are planned out. In terms of what goes on around that, I could probably do a better job at planning that and looking at a content calendar. And then some of it is really what's relevant. And Carson Group does a great job of providing us with some content every week. And I sort of reframe that and put it up in a way that often doesn't require that the person leave the platform by putting up a link, because studies have definitely shown that the algorithm does not like that. They want native content. I mean, anyone who's gone into Google recently can see now, even if you Google something, Google's giving you the answer on Google. So you're not leaving Google. So if you think about that in terms of what you're putting on social, people aren't, not only do people not want to leave, the algorithm doesn't want them to leave.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, those little AI snippets that kind of summarize everything, and then that's a great point. So you kind of already answered this, but if anything else comes up, let me know. So you mentioned there you are a Carson partner, so you do get a lot of resources from the team. So let's talk a little bit about how Carson's marketing team helps support you in your efforts.
I think probably the best place to start, and I actually don't even know if it falls under marketing, but I am going to shout out Graham Archer and the website development team. Yeah. Because one of the things that was critical to us in becoming a Carson partner was actually fintech in general. Mm-hmm. I had the fortune of hearing Terry Shepard speak at the very last TD Link, and she spoke about the data warehouse that Carson was building. And at the time, the CRM that we were using was transitioning out, and it was literally keeping Larry up at night trying to figure out if the data migration would work. And all of the tech that's now continued to change and evolve, including here in New York, very high security standards, we have Carson to help us do that. And that extra time allows Larry to focus on the families that we serve, growing the firm, being out in the media. It's part of why he was able to write his book. Yep. So the resources that Carson provides assists us in serving better. So as, you know, I've heard a number of advisors, you know, talk about SEO. Mm-hmm. I don't think a financial advisor's core strength is SEO. But Graham Archer's is, right? Like, you know, I heard Samantha Allen talk about GEO. I didn't need to know what that was because Graham Archer knows what that is. So a lot of the resources that they provide are just helping us focus on our core strength and what we do. And particularly as it relates to all the changes in AI, you know, shout out to Danny Fava. The addition of Zox to our tech stack saves our team so much time. If you don't know who Danny Fava is, or her absolutely amazing journey from literally automating a task when her daughter was 1 so that she could have extra time. She's actually our guest today on the Mitlin Money Mindset, which awesome. Anna and I did not plan. It just happened. So you can find that on any podcast platform. You know, in terms of marketing support, as I said, we take a lot of the content and repurpose that. You'll see that in our marketing commentary that goes up usually Tuesday morning. And I just take the bullet points. Krista and I put that on a video, on a photo with just a funny coffee mug. And then there's just 3 or 4 bullet points. It does remind people, if they want to read the full text, they can get it on our website every week, or they can sign up for our newsletter. But most people really want short. As my 21-year-old son hopped on and said, most people's attention spans are really short. Yeah. And I shorted a lot, right? And same thing, right? Like, people like pretty backgrounds, so that's why you'll see a lot of Larry's videos recorded in other places. And actually, Jarrell has found now that he actually prefers to record and walk, and to get a nice background here in New York in the cold weather, he actually went and did a great video from a public library. So, you know, visually, you want to have people stop the scroll. Mm-hmm. That's probably a great way to think about it. Think about how the person is consuming your content.
Yeah, I love those videos where they're walking. Like, I love Jarrell's videos. So if you don't follow Jarrell, or you're not connected with him on LinkedIn, hey, Jarrell, I see you commenting. Thank you so much for tuning in. Definitely do follow. He has really great videos, really great content also. But yes, those engaging videos where people are walking and talking. Tyrone Ross also used to do a lot of those, like after his run in the morning, so those are really great to connect with folks. You know, so I guess you kind of already answered this one too, but I always like to ask again, just in case something else comes up. But, you know, you're very grounded in your family, and you all have a nice passion for helping people and helping the families you serve, and sharing out, you know, your values and your mission authentically. What you share is authentic, right? Like you said, in our episode of Framework. But how has this mission helped you connect with more families and more people who are really a right fit for you?
Well, I think that is the power of social media, that I think many folks are afraid that they're going to push people away. But I think if you take the opposite, which is think that you attract people who think a similar way. Mm-hmm. So when Larry first started Mitlin, we took every Friday off in the summer to be present with our children.
Mm-hmm.
And some of that is actually grounded in loss. Larry lost his mother in his early 20s. I lost my brother to suicide at 27. Tomorrow is not guaranteed. Now, as a solo advisor with just an admin, Larry couldn't take a week or two off. So we took every Friday in the summer.
Mm-hmm.
And the families who were with us on us supported that so much that now sometimes on a Friday in the summer when we're here, people are like, oh, you work on Fridays in the summer? And again, if at the time you were going to judge him for that,
Mm-hmm.
okay, you could find another advisor that's one of the great fit for you. But what it brought to us were people who were grounded in that sense of family. And what those families also know is that although we were very present for our children, not only taking every Fridays off, being at their hockey games, going to tournaments with them, on the flip side, in the book, Compliance Approved, 70 cents on every dollar paying Drexel tuition currently is growth, because that 529 plan was open before Zachary was born. So we live the balance that we've now started to tell stories about. And I think that that's really what resonates. It's not preaching, it's teaching, and we live by it, and we're willing to tell those stories. I don't know if Zach's still on or not, but Zach's told that story to people like, hey, my parents opened a 529 plan before I was born. He'd actually gotten in an argument as a teenager with a dad who told him he couldn't have a retirement plan. His retirement plan was open when he was 14, because that's the legal working paper age here in New York. And he had to open the app on it and show a grown man, like, no, I have a retirement plan. So I think we live that balance. And I think that's where the magic is.
I love that, what you said, teaching, not preaching. That's key. I'm going to keep that in my mind. I love that. So as we start to wind down, Denise, let's talk about what are there any upcoming projects or initiatives or events that you're planning that you're particularly excited about?
Well, in terms of client events, I'm still planning because it's hard to top a distillery. In terms of the firm, a couple of really exciting things. One is Larry is taking what we've learned in the power of positive money conversations and is actually going to produce a webinar for advisors. If someone's interested in signing up for that, we don't have a date yet, but you can join the wait list at joyfuladvisor.com. And if you join the wait list, I actually created a cheat sheet that will show you some tips from our discovery meetings with, spoiler alert, you actually don't bring a statement. We talk to you about joy. So you'll get a sign up for that. And then second, I'm going to unveil, and I don't know if Jarrell is still on. Jarrell is actually going to present a webinar on financial literacy, targeted at teenagers and those in their 20s, to really teach them how to start off on the right foot with simple things about why your credit card's important, how to manage credit cards. We are big fans here at Mitlin that the credit card isn't bad. The credit card is a tool. Actually, I think Larry's going to have a full article authored by him in CNBC about that.com, because it's a tool. So he'll also come some basic stuff about insurance, but some really basic financial literacy, so that as these folks start to graduate college and get their footing, they understand the power of starting to save early and why paying yourself first is really a great way to start off on the right foot, as well as just some tips about how technology can help you do that.
Wonderful. And yes, follow Mitlin Financial here on LinkedIn, on X, on all the platforms, and you can keep up with all of that great news. So Denise, I always like to close out the ReFrame interviews with the question, what is one thing you wish people would reframe their thinking on when it comes to marketing?
Wow. That's a good question. I think probably the best advice is to think about what's important to you, whether that's your firm brand or your personal brand. And I will back up and say that keep in mind your personal brand is probably more important than your business brand, because people do business with people. So as you mentioned, Jarrell's got some great videos. Larry and Jarrell have different voices. They both talk from the same place. They both talk from positivity. They both talk about families that we serve, but they do have very different voices and they come from very different places. So I would say that probably the best way to reframe is not to be chasing someone else or trying to be someone else, is figure out who you are and what's important to you, and you will attract those people to you. And those are who you want to focus on and who you want to serve.
And Denise, that's great life advice too. I love it. That's beautiful. That's a beautiful way to end. So Denise, thank you so much for your time today. If people want to connect with you, where's the best way for them to do that?
Probably the best place to do that is on LinkedIn. That's where most of my business content is. I will be working on getting up some more marketing appropriate stuff. I probably do spend more of my time helping Larry and Jarrell write content. But LinkedIn will be the best place to find me.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Denise. I really appreciate our time that we get to spend together. This was a lovely, lovely way to have lunch.
And although our lunch in Denver was delicious. Thank you for that.
That was delicious. That's one of my favorite restaurants. I think of you guys every time I go there. Thank you so much again for joining me there. And everybody else, thank you for tuning into this episode of ReFrame. Our 2025 State of Women in Wealth Management Survey is live. It closes on February 21st. So I will drop the link in the comments. Please take it. We would love to get some insight into this year's research from all of you. And thank you for tuning in to ReFrame. For the past year, I've really enjoyed all of my time and all of my interviews with everybody. And I hope you all have gotten something great from it. Have a wonderful rest of your week. And thank you and goodbye.